Ben with Modern Self Protection, and I work at Sparks Firearms, obviously a gun retailer here in San Antonio. I work here, so I carry a gun every day. Had to stop by and deliver something for my wife at school. She works as a school teacher. So obviously the school is a gun-free zone. What do I do with my gun? So a little practicality is what I'm talking about here today. First of all, gun-free zones, not political, I'm talking practical for you as somebody that may or may not carry a gun. What do you need to know? Well, you need to know what they are legally and not legally. You need to know the law. Obviously, in a school, I can't carry a gun. I have a CHL, or what Texas now calls a concealed, or a right to carry, or no, a license to carry. Who knows? Anyways, so I carry a gun legally all the time. But when I go onto school grounds, I obviously cannot carry a gun. That would be against the law. Is there other places like that around you that it's illegal for you to carry? You need to pay attention to that, and you need to know the law and figure out whether you're running afoul of it or not. Now, I'm not going to tell you to break the law. Yes, no, maybe so. No. Have I broken the law before? Probably, mostly without my knowledge, or I find out later. I have, and this is, I guess it's past the statute of limitations. I've walked in places with a gun, carrying it legally, and at least I thought, and one place I'd been there 3 or 4 times, and then finally on the way out, I saw the actual legal sign here in Texas that says no guns, and I was like, oops. You know, what am I going to do about it? So it's important for you to know actually what the law is and if you're going to run afoul of it or not. But practically, what do we do with that gun when we're going to go to a gun-free zone? I'm going to school. What am I going to do with my gun? Well, it's legal to have it in my car in the parking lot. So that's where I left it. I don't like that. I have an older car. It doesn't lock real well. But, you know, I stash it. No, not just under the driver's seat. And I'm not going to tell you where I stash it so nobody knows. Yay. But I actually stash it hide far down in there. And I do that before I leave the house. And I make sure there's nobody looking when I stash my gun. But you got to plan ahead. Know where you're going and what you're doing and plan ahead. It's one of those things that you've got to do when you carry a gun. You've got to plan ahead. That's all there is to it. So I plan where I'm going to go. I know if I'm going to be legal or not. And I have a plan to deal with that. So I just got to work. I'm sitting outside of Sparks Firearms right now in my beautiful 1999 Suburban. It works. I like it. But I stashed the gun in the car, and no, not just under the seat. Like I said, I have a nice stash spot for it where you probably wouldn't find it if you just smash and grab, look through real quick. And I haven't got it yet. And that's the other thing. Where am I going to disarm? Where am I going to rearm? Standing in the parking lot is generally not a good place to do it. Here at Sparks Firearms, I'm standing in the parking lot. Somebody sees a gun. Not a big deal. Now, is it legal for me to unstash that gun in the parking lot and actually put it back on? Yes, it is. But is that a good idea? This is the practicality point. If somebody sees a gun in a school zone, how many people are going to call 911? How many people are going to freak out? If they see your gun somewhere in a school zone, legal or not, you're going to end up in handcuffs. So got to pay attention to that. And so on that topic, gun-free zones, know if it's legal or not. The other thing is your employer's policy, and that's a big thing. And I just talked to a great guy here in San Antonio last weekend, or yesterday. We had lunch, and we talked about him having a gun-free zone at his employer. Well, there's a difference between the law and your company policy. Obviously, violating the law, there's a higher problem with that. You know, go to jail, all that stuff. You know, lose your rights, gun rights, all that stuff. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you know when you're doing it. If you think about your employees' policy, what is the worst that they can do? My company, forever, when I worked for the OA company, they had a I don't care policy, and everybody carried a gun. And then all of a sudden, somewhere we hired a stupid lawyer that said that this is bad. No guns allowed in company vehicles, company apartments, company workspaces, none of that. Half of us carried guns anyways, probably more like 3/4 of us. But yes, I violated the company policy. Why? Because I worked on the stinking border between Mexico and America, and it is a no man's land. And you're lucky if you see a Border Patrol agent as one of the law enforcement that might be out there. There's no cops. You're in the middle of nowhere. Your directions are turn left at the old stump and turn right at the Y on the dirt road. You're on your own. There's no help. Even if you call 911, it would take them a half an hour to get there if they knew where you were, if they could figure it out. So I violated that policy knowingly. What are they going to do if I had somebody try to kill me out on the border and I defended myself with my gun? Fire me? big deal. Who cares? I had to use the gun to defend myself. Did I ever tell anybody that I carried my gun? Never. My official word to my boss, and we became friends and everything, we went to the gym, was that I never violate company policy. And he's like, but you carry a gun all the time. I never violate company policy. I would never admit to something like that because that will get you in trouble. If you have a boss or someplace that's putting up a no gun sign, you might want to talk to them about it. Figure out why they're doing it. If you can figure out why they're putting up a no gun sign, then you can figure out how to talk to them and if there's a way that you can change that. And a little background kind of helps. Walmart, I know people diss on them all the time, but their official stance from corporate is that whatever the law of the land is, that's what they're going to do. And a lot of Walmarts, some manager somewhere in there takes it upon themselves to put up the no gun sign and the legal no gun sign so you can't carry there. Well, technically that's against their company's policy. So when you find those things out, you can talk to the manager about it and find out why. And he goes, well, it's company policy. Well, he might be mistaking that it's, or she, that it's company policy when it's not. So you might be able to get that corrected. The other thing you might find is that it wasn't that person's decision. Sometimes you get so many layers of bureaucracy that somewhere up high, like the CEO or the board of directors of Walmart, and this is just hypothetical, or, let's say, HEB is a good one. It's a huge retailer store, grocery store here in Texas, and they decided that there's going to be no open carry now that Texas can open carry in their stores. Well, talking to their store manager, if you talk to him and you find out, well, that was made by the board of trustees and the head of the board, he doesn't have any say in that. He can't change that. No matter how much he agrees with you or you fight him on it or how many great points you make, he doesn't make that decision, so it doesn't matter. It's kind of like sales, you got to find that decision maker, and he's not the decision maker. Other times you might find out that, oh yeah, I put it up. Okay, why? Why did you put it up? Oh, some lawyer told me it was a good idea, or somebody told me I had to, or somebody said I should do. It would just be easier. Or you find all these, a lot of people just do things out of rote without really understanding what they do. So if you find out why they do it, then you can actually fix that. And so if they made the decision, now you can bring in facts and talk to them about why. The lawyer told me to do it. That's my favorite one. And honestly, here in Texas and most of America, there is, stupid buzzard, there is no downside really legally or liability ways to put up the sign. If you put up the sign that says no guns, it actually helps you with the liability. Because if somebody brings in a gun and then they decide that, that you could be responsible because you let a gun into the store and you didn't keep them safe, and now somebody misused it, especially one of your employees or something, it's not a good idea, because if you're held liable, you're in trouble. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of headache. So if you put up the no gun sign, you can always just say, hey, we said no guns. And I don't know why that person would bring a gun in here. We said no guns. It shouldn't have brought. So when you look at it that way, now you can talk to them from a legal standpoint. Well, has that really ever happened? No, not really. I mean, there was a couple cases in California a long time ago, and they kind of got dismissed, and I don't think anybody ever really got any money, but there's always ambulance chasers that will do something. And you can always tell them that I will be the ambulance chaser the other way if you wanted to kind of push and bully a little bit. If somebody gets hurt here after I have this discussion with you, I'm going to note this, and I will sue you because you didn't provide adequate protection. The sign is not protection. If you're going to make sure everybody's disarmed, then you need armed guards to, one, enforce that, and then two, keep everybody safe if somebody decides that they don't like that sign or they want to rob somebody there. And that includes the parking lot, to and from your car, the business itself, inside and out. So that's actually a lot of money for a company, and it's just stupid. It's easier just not to put up the sign. And I think that's what they should do legitimately. And then you have the other one where somebody's adamantly anti-gun. Oh, I hate guns. I'm so afraid of guns. I can't believe guns. And if I came near a gun, I would just doo-doo myself. And there's people that are that afraid of guns. They won't admit it that they're going to do to themselves, but they're that afraid of guns. And it's awesome if you take them out to the range and teach them how the gun works and have them try it. If you can talk them into that, that is one of the greatest things ever. I had a lady at the church that was willing to do that, and I took a group of ladies from the church, and my church is Revolution Church here in Church, Texas. I love it. But a group of ladies that actually worked on the staff and stuff, and one of them was kind of, the rest of them grew up in Texas, and they're like, yeah, we've been shooting shotguns our whole life. Why don't you show us how this handgun thing works? So as a group, they were cool with going out, and so I sat down, we had a safety brief, showed them how the guns work, let them drive practice a little bit. Then we went out of the range, shot for a while, had a blast. People, they loved it, and the lady that was anti-gun, really, she wasn't really anti-gun, she's just afraid of them. She felt so much better after learning how it works, got to shoot it, she was with her friends and everything. So your way around that is, if they've never been shooting, why don't you take them shooting? It'll cost you an afternoon. But if this is a decision maker in your company, it's also a networking opportunity, right? But you can do things for you, for the company, for everybody around you, for gun rights in general, and help somebody out. I mean, that's America. That's people. Being human is helping people out. So try to do those things, and maybe you can change that anti-gun spot in your actual office or sign somebody to put it up. Check your local laws. Everything's different. If you're going to violate the law, know that you're violating the law. And I'm not condoning it either way. I obviously would not come out in an open forum and say, you should violate federal law and felony. No. I'm saying that you should make your own choice. You are a big boy, big girl. You are a grown person, and that you should know whether or not you're violating the law, and you should make a conscious decision to do that. Have I done it? Yes. Have I gone to places where... well, I'll back up. I'll tell you straight up, this is past the statute of limitations. I went to a huge church conference here in Texas, and talk about a huge, it's a church conference full of pastors and people that work for churches, and it's thousands of people. There's probably 10,000 people walking around that campus, and we're all, hello, would that be a nice terrorist attack place? And they do it every year, and I walked in, and we've parked in the boondocks, because there's 10,000 people there, and I had my cool gun, my gun in my bag, and I walked in there, and I walked into the sign, and it says no guns. And I wasn't walking back to the car. One, it's probably more likely that the gun's gonna get stolen in my car instead of being on me. So I kept the stupid thing, walked by the security guard standing there that was a cop, and waved at him, and just went whatever. And I carried my gun. Why? Because it was a dangerous spot for me to be without my gun. Did they have armed security? A couple. Was it sufficient? No. It generally is not. Not bad on them, it's just too expensive. Couldn't afford to put on a conference if you had to pay security that looked like, well, I almost said the airport, but that's not good. It's something that looked like real security. Anyways, so know the law, and it's not bad if you violate it. I'm not telling you to violate it. I'm telling you to know it and make a conscious decision on what you're going to do. Plan ahead so you know where you're going, and if you're going to have to stash your gun, leave it, go through a no-gun zone, all that stuff, so that you know what's going on. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you learned something. Hope you kind of enjoyed the discussion. I'll see you next time.